now you run fifth at Indy and everybody's kind of like mad that we ran fifth, and they're mad that we ran third when we thought we had chance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. You want that competitive fire to where it's like, all right, we're really, really close and we're going to get there.
Does that make it harder, knowing it's almost a must-win situation the next 3 weeks to get to the playoffs?
No, it would be easier if I thought that was the case, that it's a must-win. But the conundrum that we're in here is that it's not a must-win. We just really have to outpoint Chris at this point until there's a new winner, which makes it difficult because sometimes the best point strategy isn't the winning strategy or the strategy you would take to win the race. You take the risk to win the race, or, hey, we can score a lot of points almost guaranteed, especially at the road courses at Daytona.
Welcome into Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR, Channel 90. Chris Childers, Mike Massaro. This is the show that showcases everything RFK. We are coming out of Iowa. Couple weeks left to go before we get to the playoffs, and certainly here at RFK, we have a keen eye on the cut line right now as we try to get the 6, the 60, and the 17 into the playoffs. But we have two great guests throughout the show to talk about our journey moving forward. Jeremy Bullins will join us first, who's been on the show a couple of times throughout the season. He is the crew chief for Brad Keselowski and the number 6 Ford Mustang. And then a little bit later on in the show, Derrick Finley, who is the crew chief for the number 60 Ford Mustang, will be joining us on the show. But let's say hello to Mr. Jeremy Bullins, the crew chief of the number 6. Jeremy, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Good, sir. Thanks for having me.
We are eager to talk to you because this has been an exciting run for the 6 car. It seems like all the bad luck that happened at the beginning of the year is starting to work out, and things are going the way of 6. It would be great to see the car in victory lane, but Iowa had a couple of stage wins all of a sudden, creeping up in the points. I know we're running out of weeks, but not too far off. What did you think of the performance in Iowa? Consistently good through 3 stages, sir.
Yeah, obviously it was a great weekend for us. It's one of those weekends, like earlier in the year when we're having bad luck and bad finishes and not getting the finishes we think we should. You tell everybody, just keep believing, keep doing the thing. We're doing the right things. It's going to pay off. And I'm just glad the last few weeks have not made a liar out of me here. So, that's the big thing is getting some momentum and getting some confidence and getting everybody believing that, we're working on the right things and we're doing the right things. And Iowa's a track that I felt like we'd be good at. It was, it's the same tire that we tested on at Gateway a few weeks back. That type of racetrack is really good for Brad, and we unloaded with good speed, qualified well, obviously started the race really well, and I thought we were in a really good spot to cycle back to the lead after all the pitting was done, and those guys just got so many cautions that they made it, and kind of great for them, but not for us. So just how it goes.
I don't know if you were like me, but every time that yellow flag flew, my heart just sunk a little bit because I knew that some of our advantage was going away.
Yeah, there was a fine line there, right? Like the tires weren't lasting as long as the fuel run was, so I was okay with a couple of yellows just to take some green flag laps off the tires. But then they kept coming and they kept coming, and I was like, oh, now the 24 can, now the 19 can make it. Well, now the 24 is getting close. Now the 24 can make it. So now we just got to run hard, and just kind of ran out of time there.
Surprised at all that the 24 did make it?
Not with as many cautions as we got. I mean, we ran so many laps under caution. I mean, we wound up, we pitted right at the edge of the fuel window and probably wound up with 4 or 5 gallons left in the car after the race, so it's one of those things where we had so many cautions, it just made it easy for everybody.
Yeah, it did. But you had a fast race car. That's the good news.
Yeah, we certainly did. It was, a really good weekend for us, and obviously with Richmond coming up and bodes well, it'll be a very similar setup and same type of approach for that weekend. So hopefully we can carry that onto there.
Yeah, momentum, Chris, for sure.
Great momentum. There's 3 races before the playoffs, and we've kind of had this attitude and thought that the 6 was going to have to win its way in, and maybe that's still the case, but the way things are going, have you figured out a scenario that doesn't involve victory lane to get in?
That would require some really, really strong weekends and a lot of points, like winning 2-stage type weekends, and some bad luck on behalf of some other people. So the points thing is definitely a long shot. I don't think we're mathematically ineligible for that, but like it's a long shot. So still feel like, winning one of the next 3 is our best bet, but, it doesn't mean we're not going to try to stack up as many points as we can just in case.
Yeah. So,
Mike,
go ahead, Chris.
I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, if this team makes the playoff, couldn't they win the whole damn thing?
Yes.
The way things are going.
I mean, yes.
Honestly, like, are you not feeling that right now? Like, if you can just get in there.
No, I mean,
you guys are hotter than anyone.
Well, I mean, I've thought that all along, right? Like, we just need one to get us in, and like, when you look at the playoffs and you look at the variety of tracks, and some of Brad's best racetracks are in the playoffs. So if we can manage to get in, I think there's we definitely can go win the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty obvious. If you peak at the right time and you are in the playoffs, then
that's what this format.
You got a shot. Yeah.
That's one of the things that drives everybody crazy with this format is it only takes one win to get in, right? And then somebody gets on a hot streak. You don't have to be good all year, but you get on a hot streak for 10 weeks, and you know what? Next thing you know, you're holding the championship trophy, and I see both sides of it, right? Like, I mean, I've worked on a car that when the playoffs started had an insurmountable lead under the old point system. We probably almost had the championship locked up with 10 to go under the old points. So I've been on both sides of it. So for me, just tell us what the rules are, and we're going to go race and try to do our best.
You feel like you are getting to the point where you're peaking? I mean, you look at the stats; it certainly looks that way.
Well, we haven't won yet, so I don't want to say that we've peaked, but we're at the point where we're feel like we're regularly contending and putting ourselves in position and getting running in the top 5, top 10 a lot of weeks, and when you do that, you're getting close, right? But until we win 4 or 5 in a row, we're not peaked yet. So
I can't wait for the 4 or 5 in a row. That would
be nice.
That'd be pretty
we've
sweet.
seen it with this team a couple of years ago at the 17. So they ripped off a few in a row. So it wouldn't be impossible by any stretch of the imagination to see the 6 do it, or the 17 or the 60 as we move forward, and it would be quite a good time for that to go down with 3 weeks left to go.
Yeah.
Watkins Glen coming up. You and I have talked about the road tracks and Brad and what he's had to do to get better. 3 to go to get to the playoffs. Give me an idea of the mindset for the team going into this weekend in Watkins Glen.
I think statistically this is probably his best road course, either here or the Roval. I think it's quite a bit different than most of the rest of them. You look at Sonoma, it's hilly, it's got some up and down, but there's some braking zones and stuff that's more similar to a street course. The street courses obviously are what they are. They're completely unique. But Watkins Glen is it's fast. You carry a lot of momentum. Carry a lot of speed up through the S's. You have to get through the bus stop and carry a lot of speed through the carousel, and it's just a high speed road course, which has always suited him well in the past. And I think when I look at Mexico wasn't great for us, but man, we really had a good weekend going at Sonoma. Had a great weekend going at Chicago and got caught in that wreck on the first lap. Like we practiced well, qualified well. Like I was really excited to see what we were going to do there. So I felt like we've built some momentum with the road course thing. So hopefully we can kind of build on all of that and put it all together and have a good setup for this weekend. And hopefully we can recreate some of his good runs from the past there and stack up a bunch of those points.
Yeah. There was back in the past he ran second a few times. I think 3 times in a row at Watkins Glen.
It used to be one of his. Statistically, it probably is one of his best overall road courses. So I'm confident we can go win at Richmond or Daytona, but I'm not going to be mad if we get it done this weekend.
All right, so at RFK, it seems like when we go to these road courses, we always go to Chris Buescher, right?
Yep.
We lean on him. Does Brad lean on him and do you lean on that team for maybe some insight?
Well, obviously they won there last year, right? So you'd be crazy not to look at what they did. I think one of the good things is we've all kind of leaned on each other at a lot of things this year, and I think you can kind of see the teamwork and all the teams are running good and to have the stats I saw this week, the first time we've had 2 cars in the top 5 in a while, back-to-back weeks. So there's a lot of good things happening right now, a lot of good collaboration and teamwork, and we're doing some really good things with the drivers before the road courses to kind of lean on each other. And obviously Chris is so consistent and runs so well at all these road courses that, he's a resource, and it's great for the other guys to be able to look at his data and look at the things that he does and try to learn from it and get better.
Yeah, he's definitely a good resource there, and this team certainly has had some good showings on the road courses here in recent memory, as we talk to Jeremy Bullins, who is the crew chief for Brad Keselowski and the number 6 Ford Mustang, as we go to another road course this weekend. This one a little bit different, as we just talked about, a little quirky, and for Brad, one that he feels a little bit more comfortable on. So hopefully some stage points and maybe a little trip to victory lane in order this weekend would be it'd be quite nice, I think. We've talked a little bit, Jeremy, about how the bad luck turned into better luck now, and you guys have worked hard, and you are shown to not be a liar, that eventually things were going to happen. Mentally through the grind for a race team, what does that look like to endure when you're just getting kicked in the gut every week, and there's really no explanation, and then all of a sudden you're doing the same things and things go your way? From a mental perspective, when sometimes you're just like, what the hell is going on? How do you deal with that? And I got to believe your experience is important.
It is. And I think, honestly, when I watch what goes on around me, I think it's harder for everybody else. I think it's harder for the team guys that, know they're putting the work in to run up front and things keep happening. For me, good or bad, I've always had this ability to just put it aside and not get caught up in it. It's frustrating, but at the end of the day, I try to live by controlling what I can control, and just, I told this story before, but like there several years ago with Brad on a couple of them, like we'd won 3 Xfinity races in a row, and I didn't even realize it was 3 in a row, like, because good or bad, like when we got off the plane, I was worried about next week. And I got asked in the media center, what's it feel like to win 3 in a row? And I was like, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I guess we did. Yeah, that's cool. But by the same token, I don't want to get too high and I don't want to get too low. So when things are going bad, I'm just focused on the positives that came out of the weekend. Did we have speed? What do we need to work on? Like, what do we do to get better? And, what could we have done differently? And try to just keep everything in perspective and know that a lot of those races that we had bad luck in the beginning of the year were beyond our control and things we couldn't do anything about. And, there were a couple that we could do something about. So let's work on that. And, it's really just trying to keep the guys and keep the team morale up. And, you see the folks in the shop, and we have our meetings on Monday, and the guys and the girls are gathered around, and you kind of see everybody's kind of down a little bit. And, it's really about keeping everybody motivated and just believing, right? Like that if we do the right things, good things are going to happen. And I feel like we've come a long way this year across the board. I think our cars have gotten better all year. And hopefully, like we talked about a few minutes ago, like we can all peak at the right time, at least get, a couple of them in the playoffs here and try to make the most of it.
So you went 3 races in a row with victories, all the victory lanes, all the celebrations, all that stuff, and it just didn't resonate.
Just glazed right over. Yeah, no, I mean, that was a great
focused man right there, Mike.
Yeah, that was a great year for us. It was 2013, and we wound up winning like 12 races overall and the owners' points. And honestly, like, it just got to be where we expected to win when we showed up. And so, like, I knew it was 3 in a row, but I didn't process it at the time. So, like, when somebody asked me that question, I was like, yeah, I guess it is. But, and I say that, because to me, it's we talk about riding the wave. You can't get too high, you can't get too low, and that's kind of how you have to treat. It's a long season, right? So if you let it drag you down, it'll drag you down. But if you just ride the wave, it's going to come around, and it's this things can be very cyclical with your luck. And honestly, like, one of the big things that's a big part of it is once you start running good and getting good finishes, then you get a good qualifying draw for the next week. So we're still in a spot where the metric affects the next week. So if you have a bad weekend and then you get a bad qualifying draw for the next weekend, that puts you behind for the next week, right? And it takes time to get out of that. And once we got out of that, if we can keep it going, like it gets a lot easier, right? So like I was running as good as we did last week. I was super disappointed that this week is a road course because it's group qualifying, so it doesn't really help us, right? But so if we now we got to get out of here with a good finish so we can have a good qualifying draw at Richmond. So it's a lot of that little stuff that adds up, and you just got to keep stacking it all up together until you start getting some good results.
Just kind of a compounding effect, it seems.
For sure.
Well, anyway, I hope we get to the point where you're in that zone again. Like,
how about Talladega this year? He's like, oh, we won 3 in a row. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that'd
I
be
forgot.
great.
I didn't know
awesome.
that. Yeah, that'd be nice.
That would be nice for everybody. So you talk about how you go through those periods of time that we experienced earlier in the year, and some guys can get down, some girls can get down. Conversely, what's it been like here in the last few weeks? Have you noticed a shift?
I think there's a little bit of like, it's a really good shift because now you run 5th at Indy and everybody's kind of like mad that we ran 5th. And they're mad that we ran 3rd when we thought we had chances. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. You want that competitive fire to where it's like, all right, we're really, really close and we're going to get there, right? And so like that's the thing that you like. And like I go back and think about, like I said earlier, I think it's for whatever reason, just the way I've taught myself to be wired, like it just the downside doesn't bother me so bad. And my wife's funny because she'll be like, I don't know how you do it. I'd be mad. I'm like, what's that going to accomplish, right? So then when you get to this point where you're running good, it's like it's fun to see everybody else like kind of starting to buy in, and like everybody's like getting excited about the fact that like we're that close, and we things are starting to come together, and we're getting a little luck behind us, and everybody realizes all right, we're gonna go do this, right? And so like it's a fun time right now, and it's like you can't wait to get back to the racetrack.
And so I heard a little bit of that in Brad's comments on the radio, not settling. I think there was one time where a lot of decisions were still being made as to what to do with the pit stop, whether to come, whether not to come. And I think Brad's quote was, let's play to win, right? Let's play to win.
And that's the mindset we've had for a while now, is like what, the points. It's nice to get the points, but they don't necessarily matter for us as much as winning a race would. But certainly, I mean, we're of the mindset that we've got to play to win, right? And what's gonna put us in the best situation to do that, and that's how we tried to call the race this weekend, and just had too many cautions go against us. So
definitely did.
Chris Childers with Jeremy Bullins today is the guest. Mike Massaro co-hosting alongside from Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. We'll take a break. We got another segment coming up with Mr. Bullins as we prepare for Watkins Glen. 3 races to go before we get to the playoffs. Brad has put himself in a position where mathematically he's alive in the points, but this team's got momentum and is gunning towards victory lane to get an automatic berth in the playoff. We'll talk more about it when we come back on Backstretch Banter. We're back on Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR, Channel 90. Chris Childers with Mike Massaro from RFK. Jeremy Bullins is our guest, the crew chief of the number 6 Ford Mustang for Roush Fenway Keselowski. We go to Watkins Glen this weekend, coming off of Iowa. Jeremy, we were talking to you last segment, and you mentioned how you're able to put things behind you, good or bad, and just focus on the week. I know you've been around Brad Keselowski for a while. You've been with him. You've worked at other teams. You've seen him as a driver solely. You've obviously worked with him now as an owner driver. You're able to put things behind you and focus on the week. But what is Brad like as a competitor? Is he one, as he's matured, that is in the same breath? Does he dwell on things, good or bad? What is Brad like to work with as a competitor?
Yeah, I think he has we all kind of have a time period that we'll allow ourselves to dwell on things. But for him, it's a lot of like just forward focused and what can we learn and what can we do to get better and what could we have possibly done different, if anything, in a weekend like this. It's like, I don't really know what we could have done different and just didn't go our way. But, I think that's the biggest thing. The conversations he and I will have are along the lines of, what can we take away from this that we can apply somewhere else? And if we're in that situation again, what would we do, or what we do different? And that's the main thing, is just trying to constantly figure out, to be the best at getting better.
So you've worked with Brad for a pretty long time over the course of your career, at various points in your career,
right.
Of course. I've listened to Brad this year during moments where I would hear other drivers in those same situations really have a hard time. But Brad's been very even keel, very much like your personality that you just described. Has he always been like that?
Yeah, he's always been, of all the drivers that I've been around or worked with, he's always been the most even keeled on the radio. He might be fuming on the inside, but he does a really good job of not letting it carry over or spill over to the radio and just trying to be, matter of fact and keeping everybody in the game and just talking about what we need to do and what the situation is. And he never gets very worked up. Like, it's not to say that he's not, but if he ever does, he really is, because he's so even keeled all the rest of the time. So he's very, very good at keeping his composure during the race when things are, not going great.
One moment I remember very early in the season, it was race 2, maybe race 3 or 4. You guys were in the garage. It was unfortunately another one of those events where you dropped out, but he called a huddle, right? He huddled the team together, if you recall this, and he gave them a pep talk, telling the team that there'd be better days ahead. That told me that he was definitely taking leadership of this team and trying to spread that positivity around. Did you notice the same thing?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and again, like I said, when things aren't going well, that's, as a driver and a crew chief, that's our biggest challenge, is to keep everybody motivated and keep everybody working on the right things. And he knew I was working hard at that, and he was working hard at it too. And that part of the speech, part of what he told everybody was, look, this car was fast. Like, we just didn't get the opportunity to show it because that Phoenix race, we were saving our 2 sets of option tires for the last stage and playing to win, right? And, got caught up in a wreck before we got that far. So, he felt really good about what we had, and he wanted everybody to know that and wanted the team to understand that, he felt like he had a good car, and we just didn't get to show it. And I felt that way a lot early in the season, and lately I feel like, okay, we're getting to show our good cars, and so that's a good feeling, and it's it's very good for the team, and it's very good for morale and confidence and everything else.
Well, good thing is we don't need a pep talk right now. Things are going great.
Yeah.
Yes. Does next season, Jeremy, come into play at all when you're moving forward here? I know we're worried about this year, the playoff. There's 3 weeks left, but let's say the playoff doesn't happen, and I don't want to, say any swear words on the. But let's just say, in theory, it doesn't happen.
No, I literally.
How much? Go ahead.
I literally had this conversation yesterday with Josh Sell, our competition director. I said, listen, I hope we get all 3 of them in, right? But like, if we only get 1, or we only get 2, or if we get, unfortunately, hopefully not, but if we don't get any in, right? Our job is to keep everybody on the team, in the shop, everybody that's working on these race cars motivated and realizing that all the good things that are happening right now, when you look at putting cars in the top 5 every week and you look at all the things that are happening, there's a lot of good things going on at RFK, and our job is to emphasize that and make sure that, like, everybody knows this is a process, right? And when I look at the 6 team, and I came in here new with, a lot of guys that had worked together with a different crew chief for a long time, and a new engineer and a guy being a car chief for the first time, right? There was a lot of change. There was a lot of, feeling everything out and figuring out what, whenever you come into a new situation, it takes some time for everybody to get comfortable in their roles, comfortable with each other as a new team. Where I'd had guys where, before my job before this, I'd had guys work for me for 7-8 years, right? So like everybody could read each other's minds, right? So it takes a little bit of time to build that chemistry and to build those relationships to where everybody gets accustomed to working with each other, and you get to, like, everybody knows now, what my expectations are and the way I like to approach the week and the way I like to get the cars put together and all that kind of stuff. And now you see all that starting to come together to where it's getting easier. And so for us, it's like, yes, we want to build that. We want to win. We want to compete. We want to win a championship next year, but we want to build this into a program that has a process that can do that year after year after year. Like, if we win the championship this year, we're not going to be satisfied. We're going to try to build on that and win it by more next year, right? So, that's our goal, is to build it to where it can have continued success. We don't want to have spurts of it. We want it to be Alabama football, right? We want it to be something that can, like, carry on and win multiple championships.
That brings up the question of the value of a win. I mean, obviously, a win in the next 3 races is important to get into the playoffs, but even beyond that, I would imagine a win carries over into next year in terms of validating all the hard work and what have you.
Yeah, I think, if we don't make the playoffs, and obviously we're going to give it our best effort, but if we don't make the playoffs, I think it's quite a litmus test if you can win a playoff race as a non-playoff car, because the playoff teams are bringing their best, right? Like the playoff teams, they get the best engines, they get the best of everything, right? And that's how it should be, right? You're trying to peak at the right time, and you're bringing your best. And if a team thinks that there's something that's better in the shop, the playoff car will get it, right? So if you can go win a playoff race, I feel like that's a bigger accomplishment sometimes than a regular season race, just because the effort that goes into the playoff cars. And these cars, it's not like it used to be with the next gen car. Like, yeah, they're all the same, but yeah, there's still some extra work that goes into the playoff cars.
All right. Last thing before I let you go, and I know we have one of your colleagues who is the crew chief of the number 60, Derrick Finley, joining us in a second, but it's almost college football season. You're a Wolfpack guy. Are you eager? Are you interested? Are you excited? What are you thinking about your NC State Wolfpack as we now have Belichick in state and Duke's kind of well thought of as well?
Yeah, I think Dave Doran's done such a good job over there, like over the years. Like, I think he's done a very good job of turning it into a program that's like maintaining itself and trying to just make it a little bit better every year. And so, yeah, it's fun to watch and see what those guys can do. It's a great time of year, like especially for us, because when the garage closes on Saturday, I was looking the other day. I can't remember what day it was, but there's like couple of Saturdays already that's like, man, there's some really good college football games on that afternoon. So it's hard for me. I'm trying to watch the Xfinity race, but there's football games on, so I'm like watching the race on my phone and watching football on TV. So yeah, looking forward to some college football and hopefully a good year for state.
It's coming very soon, as hopefully a win is for the number 6. Great to have you, sir. Good luck this weekend at the Glen, and thank you so much for your time as always.
Thanks for having me.
Jeremy Bullins, he is the crew chief of the number 6 Ford Mustang, going to Watkins Glen. And this week, Next, Lizette, Build Subs, and Mohawk are partners for the 6, the 17, and the 60. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk to the crew chief of the number 60 car, Mr. Derrick Finley, coming up next on Backstretch Banter. Stay with us. We're back here on Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR Channel 90, your home for Roush Fenway Keselowski racing each and every week. Here on Channel 90, Chris Childers with Mike Massaro, and we just heard from a great crew chief. Love Jeremy Bullins, always fun to talk to him, but now let's talk to another fabulous crew chief, Derrick Finley. He is the crew chief for Ryan Preece, who drives the 60 car. Derrick, a pleasure to have you back. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty well. I'm excited.
How are you feeling about last week, man? I mean, going from 33 to 5, that's pretty good. That's yeoman's work.
Yeah,
it was exciting. We had some moments, and we had some good and bad, and it ended up good. So, yeah.
He's generalizing this, Chris, quite a bit. But those moments, there were a few of them. You mentioned starting pretty deep in the field, being wallowed in the back of the field, and miraculously up front. I walked up to Derrick after the race and I said, "You're a strategy genius. I don't know how you did it. How did you do it?"
You can't tell all your tricks. But no, it was kind of crazy. We fired off, and I hadn't ever actually been there for a race. I've tested there as a testing manager. I've never been there even to be a crew member on a race there. So I think I was caught off guard with how rough the track was. Mm-hmm. When we fired off in practice, I really think we missed our heights by quite a bit, and we just were I'll be honest, I got caught off guard by how rough the track was. We were way off on heights. We never did get it right in practice. Never really even got it close in practice. Went to qualify. I know Ryan's confidence couldn't have been very high because we were that far off in practice. So I wasn't surprised with our qualifying lap. Wasn't happy with it, but I wasn't surprised that it wasn't good. And so we went back that night, worked all night, and woke up the next morning and worked some more. Trying to figure out what it was we were missing, because balance-wise, we weren't that far off Brad, and he was pretty happy with his car. So we were just kind of confused for a little while, and I think at the end we figured out we were just pushing our heights too hard. We were on the rub blocks, we were on the limiters. It was just a bad day, and I'm just trying to blame it on the fact I hadn't been there.
I just called it an amazing comeback. I mean, that's how I saw your race, as just being an amazing comeback. We alluded a little bit to the obstacles you faced. There were some radio issues I know that Ryan was dealing with, right? Let's start there. What were those?
So in today's world, we don't really use radios on the pit box anymore. We use intercom systems, which are connected to the internet, and they operate over VoIP. We call it VoIP, but it's voice over internet protocol. And right in the middle of the stop, probably the most crucial stop of the day, when we had a loose tire, or we weren't sure if we did at the time, and dang if the internet didn't go out. So I didn't even have communication with Ryan. I'm sitting here like, he's talking to me, and I'm like, why isn't he saying anything? What's wrong with him? And we're just kind of lost. It took us about 20, 30 seconds to even figure out we weren't talking to each other.
No.
Or weren't able to. So, that's what happened to the radio.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I thought it was me that lost radio at that point, because I know exactly when that happened. I was listening intently. I know that.
Does that happen to every team, or just...
I feel like it's just us, but no, I think it happens. I think it happens to everybody.
Okay.
So it wasn't just that, though, Chris. I mean, there were other issues that this team overcame to get a top 5 finish. There was a speeding penalty, right?
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned the worry that you had a loose wheel. All kinds of things you overcame.
Yeah, the speeding penalty. Ironically, kind of actually may have helped us a little bit. We were worried it was going to hurt us because we knew we were going to have to start at the back of the field. And when I say the back of the field, not the back of the lead lap cars, but behind the lap down cars also. So, that's part of the penalty, tail end of the longest line. So when we restarted back there, I was worried we were going to go a lap down because it was so hard to pass. So not only did we have to get some spots back amongst the lead lap cars, we had to pass all the lap cars first to even get to a lead lap car to pass. So at the end of the day, we did not go a lap down. We found out when the leaders got to us, they couldn't pass us either, so that was cool. And then the caution came out, and once the caution came out, it was like we got a fresh breath of air right there. We're like, okay, great. But being that last car on the lead lap allowed us to come in, take our time on our pit stop, get our adjustments right, allowed us to fill the car up with fuel, not worry about losing track position when we did it, and it kind of put us in a little bit of an advantage. And enough cars had pitted and gone a lap down before that caution flew that we were able to restart in 14th, just completely reset on the race car. So call it good luck, call it brilliant strategy. That's what I call it.
Mike calls it that too.
I agree. I agree. It was the turning point. There's no question that was the turning point. You went from running outside the top 25 to running inside the top 15, and from there it was on.
Yeah, but our issues didn't finish there. They weren't over at that speeding penalty and all that.
But you moved forward from there.
Yeah, we did.
One of the ways
grinding.
One of the ways I saw, Chris, I saw Ryan really being able to move forward were on the restarts. I mean, he looked incredible on the restarts. He was picking up, 2-3 spots each restart. It seemed like, anyways.
Our car, we got it to where it was really good on the restarts. The one thing we seemed to be able to tune well was that restart, those first few laps. And so we did. We just went for all restart speed. And we did give up a little bit at the end, but we hadn't had a really long run yet to where we would even worry about it. So I'm like, well, let's just, get restarts and see what we can get on the start of these things, because that's the best time to pass now with the aero issues and everything we have with this car. And ironically, it worked great. Man, he went from like 25th to 12th in 2 laps, and we're all like high-fiving each other and, thinking we're geniuses. And we had a couple more quick cautions and some restarts and gained a few more spots, ended up running third. And we're thinking, man, we are just brilliant. And then all of a sudden it went caution-free for 70 laps. We started getting loose with about 30 to go, which allowed Brad and I think the 12 car to finally catch us there at the end, knock us back to 5th. But hindsight's 20/20. You say, boy, I wish we'd had a longer run, but I'm not sure we could have gotten to that point if we'd gone for the longer run. The restart fire off is just as important now as that long run.
Well, it was a great finish, top 5, and this team is right there contending for a playoff spot, right there in the mix with 3 to go. Is there a conversation about where you're at right now in at the headquarters? Are you just grinding a race at a time and you're not thinking about it? What are we talking about right now?
I tell you, here at RFK, we have got ourselves in quite the what do you say, conundrum?
Yeah.
We've got
16's RFK and 17 is RFK.
Yeah, and the 6, and Brad's running like, he's
running well,
incredible.
Yeah.
So you're looking at him. If he wins, he knocks Chris out of the points. But now we're racing Chris to get in the points, but we want to win too. Which, I mean, we're in a spot where we really all three need to win the next 3 races, because if not, someone's going to have their feelings hurt at the end of next week, and I hope it's not us. But again, the important thing is RFK is in the playoffs.
Well, I like the way you outlined it. We need to win the next 3. And I mean, I could see it happen. Chris wins Watkins Glen. I mean, it's not out of the question, right?
I'm hurt on that. We've run pretty well on road courses.
Okay, I'm giving you.
Okay.
All right, so we could win each of the next 3 is what I'm saying, right? I don't know. And Chris comes to mind because he's the defending winner. I don't know, but I think we have the potential to win.
We almost
the next
got
3
the pole
races
at the first Mexico City race.
It's just true.
Come
Okay.
on.
Where's my stats guy? Thomas, give me my stats.
No, give me stats too.
Yeah.
No. No, you're right.
Poor Thomas.
Chris is an incredible road course racer, and I think Watkins Glen may be his best track. I actually crew chiefed him at his first ever Cup race at Watkins Glen, so I got to see him firsthand at that place, and he is phenomenal around there. So so you're absolutely right. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see Chris get a win there, or Ryan.
And Chris is going to get a little rehearsal. He's going to run the truck race. So.
Yeah, no, I tried to get that gig for Ryan.
All right. Stay tuned. More on that to come.
Yes, stay tuned indeed. We're talking right now to Mr. Derrick Finley, who is the crew chief for the number 60 Ford Mustang, the Mohawk number 60 Ford Mustang this weekend. Build subs will be on Chris Buescher's car, and next Lizette will be the wrap on the number 6 as we go to the road course this weekend at Watkins Glen. It's interesting to me as we watch this team, and you mentioned the conundrum, because just as a race fan, there's a lot of drama building over the next 3 weeks. I can't imagine what it's like to live it out right now. But this team, a lot of race fans are really kind of amazed at what the 60's been able to do in year number 1. We talked to you about it a couple months ago, how everybody just came together. And this was a team, this was stage 60 last year that was running a handful of races and different drivers. And this year it's a full-time go. I know you want to get into the playoffs, and you're right there on the cusp. But overall, has there been any reflection on the work and the bond and just how all this has come together in such an impressive way so fast, Derrick? Because it really is impressive.
From my perspective, it's been so seamless. We got together, kind of none of us knowing each other, and we took off to those first couple races. Things went well, and we have all just grown closer throughout the year. I mean, the team, Ryan, myself, there's no give up on this team. Everyone on this team fights. When we knew we were off on setup this past weekend, we stayed up all night fighting, trying to figure out how to make it better. Ryan gets in the race car, and, I mean, you see him, he just goes and, I mean, whatever you say, I'll go do it, and he does it. And you're like, man, this is awesome. And it's just been so seamless. It's been getting the team together to this state's been really easy, which is different for this business.
I mean, that's a good question. Some teams do things for team bonding and what have you. They do things outside the racetrack. Has your team done that?
We go to dinner at least once as a team every weekend. Not as an assignment, but just because we do. We get back from the track, hey, let's go eat. Yeah, we all love Mexican food. We go out and find a good Mexican joint, and man, that's. I like food, if you can't tell, but it's one of my favorite things.
And you know what? Mexican food is that.
Exactly.
Half of this big beer belly is filled with Mexican food and tequila. Believe me. So you guys figured it out. I like that. It's a good strategy. And typically you can always find one. Even if you're like in rural America, there's always some great Mexican place. And typically you can have a nice fajita and some nice chips and salsa and figure out what's going on at the racetrack, which is pretty damn cool. we should break. We'll come back. We'll talk more to Derrick Finley. We've got Watkins Glen. Iowa is behind us. I'm actually curious to hear his thoughts on Iowa as a track because he said he didn't realize it was so rough, but they did figure it out. So maybe next year he's actually excited to go back there. But we'll talk more about that when we come back right here on Backstretch Banter with Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. We're back here, Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR, Channel 90. Chris Childers and Mike Massaro. Derrick Finley is our guest today on the show. We've had some great guests throughout the season. Today, a little extra special with two crew chiefs on. Derrick, the crew chief of the 60, and earlier today, if you missed it, we had Jeremy Bullins on, the crew chief of the number 6. You can get on the Sirius XM app and go back and listen to that, or go watch the show here on YouTube. But we're getting ready for Watkins Glen. As I mentioned, Derrick Finley is our guest. We are coming off of Iowa, and Iowa is a newer track on the schedule. I know Xfinity's been racing there. You mentioned you did not realize it was as rough as it was. You figured it out, and you ended up with a top 5. Moving forward, do you like the track? Do you not like the track? How do you feel about Iowa on the NASCAR schedule?
So my wife and her family are from Iowa, so I absolutely love the track. I think the area is beautiful. There's nothing like that racetrack. It's just awesome. But no, in a serious note,
he's a smart man. He is a very smart man.
Yes, he is.
From that perspective, no. At first, I'll say this: Saturday, I hated it. Sunday, I felt like we figured a little bit of it out, and I felt pretty good about it. So I do like Iowa now. It's the racing there is difficult. It's gotten to be like it is about everywhere, though, where track position is king. And, for a crew chief, that's kind of fun. When you can start looking at ways to get track position and making a big impact on the race. I enjoy that side of it for sure. Yeah. So
the progressive banking at that place, does that change things for you much?
I love that because Ryan figured out how to pass 3 wide for 12 spots in 2 laps. I'm like, let's put progressive banking everywhere.
The designer of that racetrack, I believe, was Rusty Wallace. He felt the same way. Yes.
That's a great answer. We just got it from Derrick Finley. I love that answer. Let's go ahead and add that to all of our tracks moving forward. That would be absolutely fantastic. It was pretty beneficial for Mr. Preece as we get ready for Watkins Glen this weekend, Mike.
There's no question. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier with Derrick. Just the way that team stuck with it, right? You guys could have given up like early on, right? You had a lot of reasons to, but you didn't.
I don't think we're smart enough to. I don't know if it's our desire.
I just don't think it's in Ryan's DNA. I don't think it's in your DNA either.
We just keep plugging, I think we both have been around long enough, him in several different series, myself in the Cup Series and Xfinity Series and all that. But, that the best car the majority of the time doesn't win the race. And every week there's a surprise in the top 5. Almost every week you look at, how did that happen? And I think we expect to either be running for that top 5 or we expect to be the surprise. Either way, we just think we should be there.
Is it a surprise still? I mean, it's been Ryan and the 60 team have done this consistently throughout 2025.
No.
I mean, at the beginning of the year, yes, maybe it was a surprise, but now
it was. It's kind of funny.
So much.
You go in and things start the way they start, and you're planning on just this huge battle all day. And we had a game plan where, hey, by the end of stage 1, we're going to be 25th. We're going to try to get to 17th by the end of stage 2. And going into the middle of stage 2, we're still 31st or whatever. And I'm like, oh, man, this is not going well. And within the course of a lap, we're top 15, and you're like, So there is still an element of surprise, I guess, is where I'm going with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was a little surprising at the time.
Yeah.
No kidding.
But the top 5s, I mean, this is consecutive weeks.
Yeah. No, we're excited about that. That's where we want to be. Once you start knocking on that top 5 door every week, that win's got to be around the corner. You first try to get in the top 10 several times, then you get to the top 5, and then ultimately you're running in the top 5, you'll start getting those wins. And that's just kind of the progression of how it should happen, and that's what we're looking forward to. We just need one of those wins to come in the next 3 weeks. So
does that make it harder, knowing it's almost a must-win situation the next 3 weeks? to get to the playoffs?
No, it would be easier if I thought that was the case,
Okay.
that it's a must-win. But the conundrum that we're in here is that it's not a must-win. We just really have to outpoint Chris at this point until there's a new winner, which makes it difficult because sometimes the best point strategy isn't the winning strategy or the strategy you would take to win the race. You know, you take the risk to win the race, or, hey, we can score a lot of points almost guaranteed, especially at the road courses in Daytona. So that's where it gets tricky. And Scott Graves, he's in the same boat, you know. He's defending against it. We're on the aggressive side, but we're both sitting here looking at the same game plan. And even though it's RFK, we're both still wanting our car to be the one representing RFK or one of the three, however, you know, all three of them. However it shakes out, we want to have our cars in that championship or in that championship playoff battle. So it's tough. The position we're in is almost tougher than a must-win, I feel like.
Does it make it uncomfortable at all with Graves when you're in and around, or does it? You guys understand it's business?
We understand it's business, but you're still always like, You can't help it. That's the nature of a racer.
Yes,
we could be best friends, and I wouldn't trust him. You know, I mean, it's just it's the racer in you. It's not that there's anything about Scott or me that would be dishonest, but it's. I mean, come on, we've grown up racing. We've raced for so many years, and you beat people by not telling them things. And here we are trying to be good teammates and help each other, but you're like, golly, this is hard, man.
You know, we talked to Jeremy Bullins a little bit about this, you know, about the way the system is formatted. If you peak at the right time, as long as you get into the playoffs, you can do some damage, right? So how do you look at your team, you know, assuming you do get in?
I think if you look over the last probably 15 races, we've got to be in the top 5 on average finish. I don't know, is my stat guy around here?
He's here.
I think there's only been one race in about the last at least 10 races that we've been outside the top 15. So from that perspective, I feel like we're in pretty good shape. I think we could point our way through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. I don't want to say easily, but I think there's a very good chance we could. As far as winning goes, we're starting to hit those top 5s, it seems like. So I think winning is getting ready to start happening. And if we can hit a couple multiple wins here, in not consecutive, but in weeks that are close to each other, you know, there's no telling where we could go. So, yeah, I think we are peaking. I honestly don't feel like we ever came off the peak. I think we've just gotten a little bit better throughout the year, if you want to know the truth.
It's just been a good team all year long.
Yeah.
And I think it's been fun to watch, and you guys have had a confidence, and you've handled you know, whatever ups and downs and whatever adversity really well. And I think it should give you confidence going in to the last 3 races. Do you feel like Ryan, like Watkins Glen is favorable to the way he approaches the road course? Is this his best one?
The best one, I think for him.
Where does it stack up for him?
So I'm just going to generalize. I mean, Watkins Glen to me is always a gas smasher road course. It's not as technical as, say, a Sonoma or even a Mexico City or something, where he did really well at both.
Yeah, he did.
But Ryan's a gas smasher, so for me it lines up with him. You know, he's been doing good turning right and left, and he's a gas smasher. It should be a good course for us. You know, not having been there with him, I don't know, but you don't have the technical sections at Watkins Glen that you do a lot of tracks, and it's. Yeah, it should be really good for him. Even though I will say at the tracks we've been to with him in the road course, he's been super strong in the technical sections, which was a surprise. So, you know, it's one of my favorite tracks. So,
why is that? Why is it one of your favorites?
It was one of the first tracks I ever went to in the Cup Series with Steve Park. We ran a limited schedule. Went there with Steve, another modified guy, and ran really well, really fast. And honestly, that was Steve's first win, too.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was a big win.
It was. It was a huge win. It was after his leg got, you know, he was out for the whole half the season in 98 and came back in 99 and won it. So
what was that like? Tell us that story.
I actually wasn't there for the win.
Why not? All right, I guess we're not going to get that part of the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I remember that. Steve Park, his home state, big victory for him.
Yep.
Well, maybe somebody will remember that. We can tell that story another time.
The other one
That's
is
for
Todd
another
Bodine.
episode.
I worked with him up there too.
Yep.
He was awesome. He's right there from Chemung.
Chemung, New York.
We used to call him the Chemunky. But yeah, he's from Chemung, New York, right there, and he always ran really well at Watkins Glen too. So Watkins Glen goes way back in my career as a place that's just been good to me.
Well, we'd love to see
Good
more
for
goodness.
those modified guys from the
Yes.
Northeast.
Yep,
as
another modified guy.
Just like Ryan, right? So.
More goodness this weekend will be welcomed from our perspective. Great to see you, Derrick, and thank you so much. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Derrick Finley, great to have him. Crew chief for the number 60. This weekend, it is the Mohawk number 60 Ford Mustang, the number 17 built submarine, and the number 6 Next Lizette as we go to Watkins Glen. That is it for the week. I want to thank Mike Massaro. I am Chris Childers, and we thank you for listening to Backstretch Banter with Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing.